Hi, dearest Dawn. I think I managed to hit the record button.
I think so too. Hi.
Hi, it's so lovely to be talking to you. Thank
Oh, good
you.
to be talking to you too. Always have such wonderful conversations. So thank you.
Thank you very much. And somehow we always end up talking for a really long time.
Yes,
Um,
we'll try not to make this too long for people, but yeah.
yes,
Hmm.
we have been having a lovely conversation already, and I thought there were a few points that we could share in this course of solstice, in the solstice calendar series, where I want to find little tips for myself and whoever wants to join in, to make this time more fun. Sounds a little bit um, well, it's not the right word, but as I said in a conversation with someone else, I used to be afraid of this time and think it was so dark and gloomy. And I'm finding that's not true. For one, sun is out today. And for another is that I thought it was the stories that I told myself and the lack of self-care that made this time difficult. Um, so my dog helped me see that I actually like all seasons because I'm out in all seasons. I go for walks every day. And I know that the woods are beautiful when it's cold, when it's foggy, when it's sunny. And I thought, why have I always been afraid of this time of year? And it was that I had this idea that it was dark and that I didn't have enough. I don't like the word tools anymore, but I didn't have enough helpful, healthy, joyful habits to support myself. And so I thought we could have a little conversation about language and life, uh, where we maybe can come up with little things one can do to be more here and present and also more content with what's out there. Does that make sense?
It does make sense, and you make an excellent point when you talk about the stories you were telling yourself. That's so pertinent to what we're doing all the time. We are telling ourselves stories about our past and about what could happen and, possible futures. And none of that is actually what is, which is now. That takes us away from now and often
Mm-hmm.
takes us away from enjoying what we are doing in the now, where we are, what we're
Mm-hmm.
experiencing.
Yes.
And that again, so that's a real distraction and detraction. It detracts us from what we could be enjoying now. And it's a good point about the seasons. I mean, it's not that I don't like winter. I prefer spring and summer, and because I like the warmth. At the same time, I can still look out and enjoy seeing, winter, or yeah, you just enjoy seeing nature being nature. It doesn't mean I don't like winter, although there's less light, and so it feels dark for longer. um, and
Yes.
maybe that there's an association of things being dark. There's something wrong with when it's dark, that
Mm-hmm.
it's scary or something. I don't know, the idea of nightmares and those sorts of things, because dark, it's night. And um, I'm moving more into seeing this time of year as being a time to come into more rest, because that's what nature is doing.
Mm-hmm.
And we are part of nature. We're certainly very much connected to nature. And of course, that's the opposite of what happens in the outside world, if you like, that there's all this stuff going on that makes us think that we're supposed to be running around doing all sorts of things, being busy. And that isn't being connected to the natural cycles of things, because it is, a slowdown. And I'm definitely feeling the slowdown into winter, and think, no, this is good. This is good. I'm enjoying it. I'm appreciating it, because I know come spring, things start opening up, and there's more warmth, more activity. And so, it's like, okay, I'm setting the ground to prepare for when things change. So I think it is an approach, an attitude.
Yes.
And depending on the stories, yeah, very much so. So that's an excellent point of the stories we tell ourselves.
Yes. And I find that, like worry um about the future takes me away from the here and now and actually keeps me from changing the here and now. Like I notice that, like this time of year, if I go outside a lot, I'm happier. I find that I need to increase the time that I'm out in the woods with my lovely dog. And I need to increase the time where I just rest. And I haven't been resting enough. And I also realize I love candles and I love these, like these salt lamps and stuff, and I'm not using them enough. I think it's lovely when it's dark and I have the room full of them. And I also think that when we then slow down and feel, we can maybe notice that, ooh, it might be better for me to journey to a warmer place in wintertime. If you find that, there's nothing wrong with doing it, but it's interesting to see when you're uncomfortable, for me at least. Am I really uncomfortable because of the situation? Then I want to be creative and change it. Or am I uncomfortable because I'm telling myself a story that this is uncomfortable? You know? Uh,
Mm. That's a good point. Yes, it's to be happy with asking ourselves questions of
mhm,
about how you feel. And again, to recognize that, we have emotions and feelings, they're absolutely relevant. And
mhm,
again, it's the story we tell ourselves. And it could be, oh, I want some warmth because you want to escape. And if you're using, and again, I know we're going to get into this because we're both into the language, and you very much so, is what am I escaping? To be able
mhm,
to sit with that question of, I want to escape to the sun. Okay, well, I can understand, if it's cold and wet and miserable, you can then, oh yes, yeah, it'd be nice to be in the sun. But what would you do in the sun? Well, I just lie out in the sun. Well, can you not just rest take advantage of the cold, dark, and be inside? And like you say, light candles, listen to some music, and rest, get that rest.
yeah.
You know,
And make sure you're out around 12 o'clock because I do feel that then the sun is especially powerful even when it's cloudy. It's an
mm,
important time to be out. And, I notice that I often don't make it a point to be out then, to I don't schedule my appointments carefully enough, or
mm.
yeah, I'm not careful enough with my own energy and time to take care of myself. And it's an interesting question. Why don't I? And I used to come from, ooh, I'm being bad. And therefore, next word that we want to talk about, I can't heal or I can't get better if I keep making these mistakes. And I notice that kind of self-talk is really interesting to write down and transform.
Yes, to be aware of the words that we're using, especially with the self-talk,
Hmm.
when you're sitting and feeling something, and creating a story around whatever it is that you're feeling. And it's not to be it's not to come from a place of being critical. It's
Hmm.
not to kind of
Exactly.
engage the inner oh, I'm doing, I'm this, I'm
Exactly.
that. It's to say, it's to, where you can, to come from a place of curiosity, that,
Hmm.
oh, that's interesting.
Hmm.
What
Yes.
what's why am I thinking that? Or maybe even just, okay, that's a word. Maybe not think, to be more, um to tune more into your intuition, to uh, I say sit with it, but to find some space and contemplate that intuitively, or
Mm-hmm.
contemplate a particular word. Yeah, again, because you're going to go into healing, so say, well, what does healing mean to me, and to see what thoughts come through, because
Mm-hmm.
that will get, again, with the language, that will give you an idea of where your beliefs are. That and again, I can't even imagine, because everyone's different, so everyone will have their own ideas and thoughts, and language that they will use connected to the word healing. So
Mm-hmm.
one of the things I would suggest is that there's a common thread, which is that there's something wrong that needs to be healed. Now, even saying there's something, or suggesting there's something wrong, I would say, well, that may be a misperception, that is something wrong. It's there's an experience of something that maybe you're not happy with, and at the same time, to recognize that our bodies are always giving us messages,
Mm-hmm.
or shall we say, our greater self is always giving us messages of something to help us continue our journey. And again, I know we're going to like dive into with kind of like learning, or whatever the word we want to use. So, to expand our awareness of who we are and what we're doing here. And sometimes will use the body. I mean, the body will be the the instrument through which we can have a particular experience that will help guide us towards um, what we are looking to understand, should say. So the
Yes.
body has lots of different organs, and there are different emotions connected to each organ, and that is a useful guideline to um, understand what it is that we are processing, and what and again, we're going to get into learning, but it kind of what we are expanding our awareness of, or a particular something that, again, I can come from the idea that we each choose a general path for this life in this realm. So we are working through an understanding of whatever it is we're learning. So if it's something to do with anger, for example, then the liver may be involved. So people may experience something in that liver area their if their process of expansion and understanding is related to anger somehow.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so knowing that there are different emotions connected to different parts of the body, that can give us some direction, and think, oh, there's something to do with anger, and to see what that contemplation of the word anger, what thoughts it takes you to, and again, what stories you
Mm-hmm.
are thinking, or what
Mm-hmm.
stories come to mind, to then bring them forward and say, okay, this is my story related to anger, and exactly as you say, how is that affecting me now?
Yes.
What is it useful to bring that story into now? How
Mm-hmm.
is that helping me to uncover more of who I am, and to expand consciousness of what life is about? Is
Mm-hmm.
that helping me, or is that actually hindering me? Is that
Mm-hmm.
am I holding on to anger that is actually restricting me? So again, it's to have those questions,
Questions. Exactly.
and to not necessarily look for answers, because we're talking
Yes.
about that, to say, oh, I need to know the answer. No, it's to raise
Exactly.
the question, and to allow intuition to present something, or
Mm-hmm.
some kind of insight. And if it doesn't, that's okay too, to say, okay, I'm going to sit with the question, because
Mm-hmm.
there's something about anger, not sure what it is. And it may not be this now moment, it might be, you know, the next day or the next week that
Mm-hmm.
something will, an opportunity will come to you that will allow you to, that's where the anger, that's what the anger's about. So,
Mm-hmm.
you know, like we were saying before, this life is amazing. It's a mystery, and for, to a greater extent than some people are comfortable with, it's to stay with the mystery, to think, okay, this I may not know. At the same time, there's something connected with anger, and or it could be just quite simply, do I want to stay angry? Is that helping me? And to release. Yeah, it's we have to be vague because each of us is different, and so
Yeah,
it'll be different for each person.
yeah, and that's where, I mean, not everybody likes writing as a tool, but this is where the questions you mentioned and the writing comes in for me. Like we come from school, and there the teacher asks questions that aren't real questions. They are traps to make us be obedient. And so we maybe even have a bad attitude towards questions because we have this idea, if I don't know the answer, I'm I'm in trouble. But learning to ask these really curious, um, kind questions like, what am I actually sensing, you know, in my body? Oh, I feel pressure here, or I feel something, or I feel numb. And then to see what is the story I'm attaching to it, not as, ooh, don't do that, but oh, I actually think that feeling, the word feeling can refer to the sensation, like I feel pressure here, or I feel somehow cold, I have cold feet, you know, or I noticed that I need to go to the bathroom and I didn't notice that before, like I tuned myself out. Those are not interpretations. Those are like trying to find language for something that is in my body. But as soon as I say I am sad, that's an interpretation of something I am sensing. And so people often go, oh, feelings are different from emotions. No, the word feeling is sometimes used for sensations and sometimes used for these interpretations of sensations, and those are stories. And to not say, oh, don't tell yourself stories, but to say, oh, interesting, let me write down what I'm telling myself, and
Mm.
then to see how does it feel when I'm telling myself that. And um, does that mean that I need to change something in my surroundings, or do I need to change the stories, or both? But to sort of go like, this is where the study of grammar helped me so much. Like when you analyze a sentence or a story, you look closely at what's there, and then you let it sit and see what it does with you, you know? And that's like a contemplative experience. And it takes this, and then you judge whether you want it or not, but you don't condemn yourself, you know? And I think that's so interesting. We do need to judge all the time whether we want to follow the yes or no in our body, but we don't have to condemn ourselves or the others for something. Um, so,
Yes, there's a big point about judgment as, being judgmental.
mm-hmm,
Um, Again, these are subtleties in these different words. It's
mm-hmm,
to, as you rightly say, it's absolutely fine to assess your surroundings, your experiences, to say, oh, um, what is going on? Yeah, and
mm-hmm,
we need to be able to assess our surroundings if
mm-hmm.
we're outside.
Yes.
Um, I mean, obvious example, if you're about to, cross a road, you need to assess whether the traffic is clear or not, and
Mm-hmm.
so, and that's a, obviously very simplistic
But
example
it's
of
good because that
judging. You
shows
need to
us.
keep, yes.
I think those simplistic examples help us to solve to navigate the more complex ones. Like it's not wise for me to step into a street full of cars, you know? And so
Yes.
and then if I do it, it happens because I'm sidetracked. I'm not in my body really with my mind. I'm and so I can't watch out for myself, you know. Um, and so that's an important thing to notice. And this, by the same token, there are some things where my body says, back off, danger. And it's good to not bulldoze over that, but to think, why does my body not want to go there? And to take it seriously. Um, and then,
Yes, totally. That's
hmm
to learn to listen when there's an intuitive message, because
hmm
they're almost, certainly a quieter kind of message.
hmm
Um, Partly because we aren't encouraged, we're not taught to learn to listen to that. We are taught to function through the five senses,
hmm
as being our way of learning, and the intellect rather than the mind and intuition. So it's and it can be quieter, or and sometimes it can be quite loud, as you say. Sort of something is it can be a loud message, and
hmm
it's learning for ourselves what our body is telling us and
hmm
what kind of message and what's going on. And the other thing, of course, is, as you were saying, with feelings and emotions, that there's a sensation in the body.
hmm
There's something, a certain sensation, and it might be in the kind of pit of your stomach, and you go, oh, I feel blah, and that's giving something a label, and you go, well, it isn't that. That's the again the label, the story you are attaching to that sensation. And that's the point where they're, oh, why does it make me feel like, for example, it's like, oh, anxious?
hmm
And is there a difference between that feeling that you call anxious and the feeling that you would call excitement?
hmm
Are they actually different? Sorry, excuse me.
hmm
Are they actually different? Are they um I- maybe, maybe not. It's what we say, and the label we, as I say, the label we give to that sensation.
Yes, and I'm still exploring. I the difference between, walking into a room and sensing that it's cold for my body. Like it's
Mm.
so interesting. Yeah, I'm in the same room with my boys and they are sweating and I'm either comfortable or cold, So obviously the room is the same, but they're hot and I'm cold, or the other way around. So I think that's an interesting thing, and that as a linguist makes me think of, well, I don't even like the word linguist, but as a person who loves language, now I think, like this, it is cold in here. This is like a truth statement. We're using this certain type of sentence and a certain tense and a certain verb. And those types of usages are habitually associated with truth statement. But I can't say, we had just had this situation a few days ago. My son said, "Oh, it's hot in here." And I felt, "Oh no, he he's sweating and I'm comfortable, on the
Mhm.
verge of getting too cold." That's interesting. We have different truths, but the room seems to be the same, you know? And to see we're both right, Um, but we
So it's
do
my, so it's my experience of the room is, or it's not even necessarily the room. It's just, well, this is how I feel. It's not the room. It's
exactly.
how I feel. And as you say, yeah, no, that's yeah, that's an
Yeah.
interesting
So
distinction,
so
that
the ex
different people and again, different people in the same environment
in the
can
same
feel
room.
different. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
and so to see, okay, we're both sane in our opinion. We're both
Mm.
uh nice people in our opinion, and we experience this room and this situation so differently and in a way, very simple way, and we don't fight over it. We just notice, huh, interesting, you're hot, I'm cold, or I'm comfortable. And that was interesting how in that case, and I mean, I get along with my sons anyway, but in some situations, we can just go, huh, interesting, but we don't apply that, well, peaceful strategy to certain other experiences, you know? And I find it so interesting, I as some a philologist or a linguist or a language person, I have analyzed many, many texts. And it's so and I study the grammar of text and what is a text, and you you quickly see a text is indeed a co-creation. It's this virtual space that only comes alive when I choose to listen to it or read it, and I bring myself to it. And so the experience of the same text will be different because I am different. And I'm sure everybody listening and you too have had this experience. You read a book when you're young, you think it's stupid. You read it when you're older and you think, oh, what a great book. Or the other way around, you know? Um,
or that, a subsequent reading, there are things in that book you think, wow, I didn't remember that,
yeah,
because it's speaking to you at a different level, because
yeah,
you are different now than you were then, and
exactly.
that's the other thing that we don't always recognize. You go, oh,
Yeah.
what I did or what I thought. You go, well, it's that's where you were then,
Exactly.
and
Yeah, and so the text is a co-creation, and it's
mm,
very good to notice that. And I somehow feel that situations are also co-creations, like the same people in the room make an atmosphere, the room makes an atmosphere. We come in with certain, how we are in that day. And so this experience, I can see how it is very subjective, and that doesn't make it all okay or all wrong or all good. It's just interesting. And so to just notice and ask questions that don't want an answer, but just to help me notice things are, well, that's a new strategy for me, or maybe not new, but one where I'm more aware of, that I can and I observe, where do I automatically use that and where do I fall into this old pattern of ooh, I'm wrong, or the other people are wrong, um, instead of saying doesn't
mm,
fit for me right now, you know?
that's the thing. I mean, we were talking about it before, but sorry, excuse me, the idea that if we're asking questions, it means we need an answer. It's got, the question has to
Hmm.
be answered, and it's learning to be, and I think learning's the right word there.
We'll look at that.
We're learning to be comfortable with uncertainty, and that's a big problem, because we are trained through the education system to either, to give the right answer, and if we don't give the answer that we're expected to give, then it's wrong, as you said. So we feel that we're wrong, we can
Hmm.
be wrong, and that doesn't allow us to have our own personal experience. Now, I mean, there are situations where we do need to be right. If you are building something, you do need to know how to build and to create the right um, structure. So you do need to have accurate angles, and things do need to be right in that way. So I'm not saying, yeah, I was like, oh,
No,
there's no
no.
reason, there are no places to be right.
Correct. Well, it's
Um,
like being correct or precise sometimes, like.
yes, precision is required in certain, like engineering and building, and all sorts of areas that are very practical. Precision is required.
It's precision, and there are and then at the same time we know that there are different ways of building something, and there are different styles of buildings, and at the same time there's also a way of building something in such a way that it will collapse, and then that's not the outcome we want, you know? And so, but this is based on real experience, on real physical experience, often. And even though sometimes we wonder why something doesn't collapse, there's also that. There is even room for mystery there sometimes.
Well,
Uh,
that's the word, yes, to keep everything. There are occasions where it is appropriate to be right. It's when we expect it that in all areas of our lives that
mhm.
we can be trapped into thinking, oh, I need to know the answer. Well,
Oh,
maybe what?
my dog is barking. Can you hear that?
No.
Okay, good. I can, baby, it's okay. It's okay. I don't have the sound for musician on, so you can't hear him sing.
Oh, okay.
It's very noisy and I can barely hear anything. Baby, I know. I would prefer you to stop because I can't hear Dawn. Oh well, sorry about this. Yes.
No, it's okay. Life,
Um,
these.
yes,
Yeah.
life. It's so funny what is filtered out and what's not filtered out.
Mm.
Yeah.
So yes, in again in terms of right, it's made to be across the board, and there are many areas of our lives that we don't have to be right in, and it's not a question of even right or wrong. It's a question of what what meaning we assign to our experiences,
hmm
and it's more about some kind of meaning to our life and yeah, what we can, and again maybe we want to, this is the place to explore the word learn, because
Yes, learn and heal.
what
Yes.
do we want to learn? What if we start with learn, and I think maybe that'll move in more easily into heal.
Yeah.
So I use it, I suppose I use it in the context of expanding our experience, expanding consciousness, expanding our understanding,
hmm
not learning in the context of, like at school, learn. The teacher says something, you learn it, and then regurgitate it and get a tick on your exam
And then
paper, and then
you're
you get,
better. Then you're better. This is,
and then you get a qualification, a piece of paper that says that you're clever.
yes.
That's not what I mean by learning. So maybe that it's given that a kind of interpretation. So maybe it's a good opportunity to expand what we mean by that term learn in
Yes,
terms of
and it's connected with right and wrong and truth and
mm,
being better. Like when you learn, you're able to see, then you're able to read, and then you're smarter and then you're better. And we often um, there's this judgment of if you haven't learned your lesson, then you're not good. And so if you make the same mistake twice, then you're stupid. And that is bad. And I find it so difficult in these times. I will admit I'm not woke, and I don't like this policing of emotions and words. And at the same time, I think it is very important to be um, gentle with how we use words. And I somehow think there is, this beauty in language and also a danger in language. I find that language can either be a prison and can cut us off from feeling and being connected with us and other beings and the world. And it can be a beautiful bridge leading us into being free and connected and open and exploring things that are enjoyable or important for us. And I think it's so important to see, for me at least, how the same, well, I don't even want to say tool, but maybe being can be either restricting to myself or harmful, even can be used against myself by me and others, or can be this wonderful playground. Um, and that's why it makes me sad when we stumble into letting the play, being the playground being destroyed or taking, I want to reclaim the playground for myself.
oh, totally, I agree. And so my quest to look at the language is not to be finicky about it, or
hmm
nitpicking, or it's like not being nerdy about it.
Oh,
It's
oh,
more
nerdy
to
is good.
it's I know it's more to to find new ways to express, because that learn is that word learn is structured in, or the connotations from that.
The
It's not that it's
connotations.
structured. So again, without looking at the etymology of learn, maybe that's something for me to look into and to see where that is. I mean, for me, life is a learning journey. It's an expansion of understanding. So that's, and at the same time, I'm aware it's very much tied to the schooling system where you go to learn. You get your education. So
And to
I
become a better
realized,
person. Yeah.
yes. So
Yeah.
I realize, and that's why in many cases it's good to choose other words, because we know there's so many
Hmm.
misconceptions sort of attached to a particular word, and it's not
Yes.
because there's anything wrong with the word. It may just be because too many people have a particular interpretation of what that means to them, and like you say, it kind of takes them down that path, and that's not my intention. So it's good to expand, and I'm always looking to use different words, to discover different words, and at the same time not to try and be intellectual. Look at me, I swallowed a thesaurus last night. It's
Hmm.
not to come across as I can use all these posh words. It's not that, because my approach is to make what I'm expressing accessible to people. So
Hmm.
my point is not to baffle people with the terminology and the jargon, because that's exactly what I'm critiquing,
Hmm.
definitely within the field of, like, the medical system. That's
Yes.
one of their tools. They baffle people, and it just goes, science. It's just
That's not for
no.
me. They must
Whoa,
know
over
they
my
are the
head.
they are the experts. I'm stupid. Whatever they say is right.
Precisely. And that is the barrier that stops people from wanting to look into it. So
Yes.
um that, and it seems to work, because it's like, oh, it's like science, with the
I know. I
and so
know.
it's to say, well, it's not that scary, and it is possible to break down what's going on, and to put it
Yes.
across in more accessible language. And that's the point,
Yes.
to be able to express myself clearly.
Hmm. Yes.
And
And
that's key for me, and
yes.
then for that to go out to people who, or for people to read it, and they understand what I'm saying. I mean, that's the point. What's the point of using fancy terminology when the people I am I'd like to feel are my audience, and I'm not going to understand? Well, I'm wasting
Yes.
my time.
Terminology, that's also
Mm.
something I learned through grammar. There are these different big schools of grammar and they use certain terms. And we have at school been scared by those terms because they were not explained to us as tools. To me, terminology is like a shelf system. Like I have this shelf in my room and it's from a particular company that has a certain style. And I like it. However, there are other shelves that work just as well. So, um, if I didn't have the any kind of shelf, I would have a pile of books and stuff, and it would be awful. Because I have a shelf, I can organize my books, and I can have an organizing principle, like putting all my grammar books here and my novels there, and et cetera, and maybe all the German books there, and the English books there, and stuff. But the principle I choose is one that I find comfortable. So I choose the shelf system and I choose the organizing principle that suits me. And right now it's not as organized as I would like it to be because there are too many books in it. And so it becomes a bit confusing. And the same is true for grammar. And I find for medicine as well. Terminology is like an organizing principle. And it is in itself not necessarily right or wrong. It's based on a philosophy, and I need to understand this is a tool, this is based on this philosophy, and do I agree with that or not? So it's very, and sometimes we do need terms in order to have an easier time. For instance, I love to if you take glasses, if I have to say, give me that thing with the two glass lens or plastic lenses and that I can see better or not better, it's a hassle. So pass me those glasses is easier. Now we can question whether I need these, whether it wouldn't be better for me to do exercises and do all kinds of things and train myself to get, beyond the
Oh, that's
stage.
that's a
But
separate
that's
issue.
a
Yes, yes,
totally different
absolutely,
issue. But there
absolutely.
is this term, these we can all agree are called glasses in American English, and spectacles, I guess you call them, or do you call them glasses now also?
Glasses, yeah, glasses.
When I was at
Some people
school,
call it, yeah, it's
yeah,
spectacles,
so
and that's more old-fashioned, I
I
would
know,
say, but
I
yeah,
know. I used to, like 40 years ago, I learned at school that spectacles is the British expression and glasses are the American. I don't know. Brits have become Americanized. I don't know whether that's true or not, but there are two expressions for this same type of thing. And it's and using the word glasses, the term is in some ways almost neutral, but the question of whether I need them or not is not. But what they do and what and is, and so it's interesting, and this is how it is with all terms. Sometimes, like a hammer, it's nice to be able to say, pass me the hammer. It's easier, and I can, of course, do things with a hammer that are destructive or beautiful. And so I think I would like to extend the invitation to not condemn terminology as such, but to see what is it doing, what is it helping, what is it hindering, what kind of a tool is it, and do I want to use it? And what does it do with my body when I use it? And through reading your book, which I cannot thank you enough for, your book was a gateway into more joy and freedom for me. And I'm
thank
looking
you.
forward to your next book.
Mhm. Thank you.
And it was an interesting experience because it's big. It's not, because you needed to stick so much material in there. It's not like necessarily, like you didn't have space for space in it, like so there the pages are full and crammed, and it is a topic that is, for experts. And I found it interesting that my linguistic and grammar background and my reading background enabled me to tackle it and encouraged me to also look at different texts and to see, um, with a knowledge of language and grammar and my experience of analyzing grammar, I can actually not only read your book, but also books by virologists and actually discover the bullshit behind it. And that, and it was at first a lot of work, and to apply what I knew to a new topic. But to see that if you take the time and you apply the tools, you can do it, you know, and to then see what does it do with my world picture, with my with my and to see that and with reading your book, it was so clear to me again what I knew for other areas of my life, but how language is used to construct realities. And the language we use and buy into without analyzing it will control how we experience the world.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's so powerful for people to understand. And yet it seems so mind-blowing. And at the same time, when you realize it, you recognize that's where the to say the stories we tell ourselves, what we're telling ourselves, the words we're using, they demonstrate to us where our beliefs are.
Mm-hmm.
That's a very clear exhibition, if you like, of our belief systems. Like, what the stories are. Oh, this, and this.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. um, it's then to say how I feel about it. How is that useful for me? And it's not just to say, oh, I've got to get rid of it, because then that's the resistance and saying there's something bad. It's, there's always an opportunity to learn something as we have this information presented to us, whether it comes from within or something, in the like external world. And this is an incredible time that we're going through, as more and more people are really becoming so much more aware of all of this and what we're doing. And there is a lot of confusion,
Hmm.
understandably, because so much is being exposed in ways that that are surprising, confusing, unsettling, um, and creating a lot of uncertainty.
Hmm.
And it's yeah, as I say, unsettling, and at the same time, it's bringing a lot of stuff to the surface that we can say, well, is that useful? Well, no. And what can we do about it? So, again, that's, you can get into how we fight the old and how we do that. Well, if you're fighting it, you're resisting it, and so you're giving your energy to what you don't want. So those kinds of things. So there's so much about how our language is a sign to a signpost to our thoughts and beliefs. And you say, well, okay, is that, how is that belief helping me,
Hmm.
or is it holding me back? And
Yes.
in many cases it can be holding it. And so to appreciate and to have gratitude for the opportunity to see that and say, okay, it's not to reject that, it's to recognize it and say, okay, thank you for whatever it is, for showing that to me, and I'll do something different with it. It's it's so difficult to be precise, on this, because we are all different. Our experiences are different. So
Yeah.
but language is important, and the words
Yeah.
that we use and the way we express ourselves and how we feel and how we express ourselves in the world with other people and relationships, and so much is changing. And because language is the tool of communication,
Yes.
it's important to understand how we are communicating with others, with
Hmm.
ourselves and with others, of course.
Yes. And
So,
I find,
and it's and with ourselves, of course, not, that's the important part, to recognize if we are communicating with ourselves.
hmm, yes,
Yeah.
yes, the self-talk. Like
Mm.
what's so interesting to me? Well, the way, yes, we are all different in some ways, and in some ways we are human and do share certain
Oh, yes.
characteristics. And the way around, like getting away from generalizing about the human experience based on my own experience, I find it interesting to describe actually what's happening for me, not because um, I'm so important, but because that's where I can, I there's much I don't know about me yet, myself yet, but there is something that I have understood. And so I can share that, and then people can see, does it resonate with me or not? And so I tend to want to share my experience, not because I, I find myself more important than others, but because I can speak to my experience. And then,
Exactly.
and so in that way, I avoid telling people, this is my experience, therefore you need to have the same. It's like, let me share this, and then you can compare notes and see, does that give you maybe an idea, or does that help you have language for something that before you didn't think about? Because this is how it happens to me. I listen to other people, I read other books, but I don't read them anymore as dogma or as gurus. I read and I see, what does the experience of reading do for me? What is happening, and does it change my world picture in ways that I find welcoming and liberating? And then I take what helps me and I leave what doesn't. And so I, by the same token, I think my sharing might be welcome to someone else, just as I like reading and listening to others. I wouldn't be where I'm now without your book. I'm extremely grateful because it was this gateway. I'm not taking every word as gospel, and I know you don't because you've moved on. But there's so much helpful material in there, and it changed my world. I feel like I'm a different person now because the book invited me on a journey and I accepted the invitation, and it led me to other people, other books, other point of views, and it led me to a new experience of myself and of life that is more joyful. I feel more joyful and more trusting now in a way that I like, you know.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much. I mean, I really appreciate that. And um, yes, there's I stand by the vast majority of what's in the book. There are one or two details that they're kind of, I view differently, and that's fine
And that's
because
fine because
it,
you're
it,
a human being.
yes, and I have. I was going to say I'm going to get rid of. I think I'm going to use the word discover at the moment. So I've
Mm-hmm.
discovered more in the
Mm-hmm.
past. I was like, it's almost. I mean, we're literally a couple of weeks off 6 years since the book was published. So a lot happens in 6 years. So I have
Mm-hmm.
discovered a lot of new
Ideas.
ideas,
Mm.
and I have discarded some ideas that I thought were correct at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And they are not the fundamentals of the book, though. So, as I say, the basic premise or the basic premises are sound. It's just some of the, as I say, some of the details. And in case anyone's curious, I mean, the one detail is about the nuclear industry, and so I'll leave that one,
Yes,
out
yes,
there.
I've had great experiences with that. But the interesting thing is that your book was the gateway to me discovering a new way of seeing that was more liberating and helped me out of fear. And so I think so you have changed your mind about certain things with regard to the nuclear industry as a consequence of your development. And um, you have coincidentally brought me along because your book was the gateway to me opening myself up to questioning everything. And the book enabled me to dismantle lies in joyful ways. I'm not stuck in, ooh, they're out to get us, but I'm dismantling lies. I'm not replacing them with new truths. I'm being curious and I'm in the space of, ooh, it's not as I thought it was. Some things are more mysterious now. And I think um, the word knowing is so interesting. Like I know less of what I thought I knew, and I have different kinds of knowing. Like I know less and feel richer. You know what I mean?
Yes, yes. There's a saying that the more I know, um, the more I see. One saying is about the more I know,
I
the more I realize I know nothing, and
and that's not true like
I'm
that.
yes,
Yeah,
exactly. I'm reluctant to use that one because it's
exactly.
not nothing, because I don't like extremes of everything and
No,
nothing and
no,
everyone
no,
nowhere. I
no,
don't. At
exactly.
the same time, it's the more I know, the more I realize there's a lot more still to learn,
Yes,
and unlearn,
to
and part, as you say,
experience maybe.
part of the process, as you say, part of the process is not unlearning, is removing what we now know is not true.
Yes. So I have
And
this
it is an
man. Yeah,
investigation of, as you
exactly.
say, dismantling the lies, and that's
Exactly.
unsettling for people.
Yes,
At the same time, there's no point clinging to something that isn't true because
totally.
otherwise it's unsettling, because
Exactly.
you're just go, how is that helpful to follow?
Exactly.
Because many people say, No, 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 I don't want to look at it. I'm going to still keep with that and just, yeah, but it isn't helpful. Just no, it's just too, I can't go there. You know, okay.
Yes,
They're
yes,
obviously not ready. And to say, okay, and to allow them that freedom of choice to choose to stay there. Okay, that's fine. However, there is, there are opportunities when, if and when you're ready, there's some information for you. It's not for me to say, oh, you've got to know. This is the other
yeah, and
thing. And the
that
and the no, and it isn't, yeah, unlearning isn't the right word, is it? It's dismantling the layers of deception.
yes, I have
Only,
certainly
yeah.
dismantled stuff that I know I don't believe in anymore. Let's say that I thought I knew certain things, and now I know that I believed them instead of knowing
Yes.
them.
Good point.
So,
Good point.
so I thought I knew, but I realized I believed them without having proof, or even I believed them going against my own senses, because we through trauma and brainwashing and manipulation, and without thinking about why it happens, it's just a fact that probably before birth, but at the very latest, with the type of birth that we experience, we are cut off not only, from our own experience and our own senses and our own truth. And it is replaced by concepts and rules and, you know, threat and trauma. And so um, then the things we are given as knowledge are not knowledge, but they are belief systems. And most of them that most of the belief systems that I was given as truth or as knowledge are not enjoyable or life enriching to me. And I'm happy to let go of them. And I'm wary of replacing them with new belief systems. There's the temptation to do that because that gives you like this safety. Being in a cage might feel safer. But I want to step out of my cages. And yeah, so it's and this is where the nerdiness comes in handy. Like just like I could sit down and analyze different schools of grammar and decide that I liked some and not others, and I liked best of all to create a mixture and to then try to get beyond the labels with the help of colors. Not because, just because the labels were so, um, well, I don't know, a little bit, is the word tarnish, like a little bit made heavy or uncomfortable by certain customs, like with learning. And, like it has been used in a certain way for so long that now it's almost a bit spoiled, and it trips us up, you know? Like if I say, I've learned this, then it implies that before I learned it, I was worse. And if someone hasn't learned it yet, he is worse. And if I don't want to go that way, but to just say, I have a new experience now, and I find that more pleasant. It's more connecting to me, more life enriching, and more enjoyable and more peaceful. Um, then I need a lot of words, but they
Mm.
they get me out of the old paradigm. You know what I mean?
Mm. Mm. Yeah, so that's why I'm kind of at the moment, I'm going to study, but I'm going to look into replacing it with discovery, because
Mm-hmm.
discovery it's so
Mm.
learning.
Yeah,
Is
discovery
this
is nice, joyful curiosity, discovering, I'm looking for, and maybe investigating or exploring. Yeah,
yeah,
exploring is also
exploring
nice.
is, yes, exploring. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
it's so, as you say, the learning does sound like it's, you didn't know something and now you know something. And again, we're
Yeah.
questioning what we know. What is actual knowledge? Is it information? Is it a belief system? And
Mm-hmm.
it's important not to think you have to replace.
Yes.
There's that phrase, falsification does not require replacement.
Love that.
And exactly, and that's what is being challenged by many people when they hear people like me say things about, the germ theory hasn't been proven, and or when they say, well, what made me ill then? And say, well, I can't tell you. Well, well, if you can't tell me, then, you don't know what you're talking about, or, you've got to tell me,
Exactly.
you've
Yes.
got to replace it. I
Yes.
don't actually
No.
have to, I don't have to do anything. However, I am not obliged to reply, um, to use a replacement, to provide anyone with a replacement belief system, because as you say, it's a belief system.
Hmm.
What I can say is that there, from what I've learned, there are lots of other possibilities, and
Yeah.
it'll almost certainly be a combination of those different possibilities.
Yeah.
But nobody can know
No.
exactly, and this is what people are after, this precision, and that's what we think science is about, and it isn't.
No.
It's a process. It's a process of inquiry, and it should never be settled. This whole idea that science is settled. I mean, it's just nonsense,
Nonsense.
because
I know.
that's not real. Well, it's not real science. It's scientism, as
Yes.
so many of us have been saying and again. There's so much to all of this, and again, just the different perspectives within the field of science. The philosophy of science. I was
Hmm.
having a conversation from my podcast, most recent podcast episode. Fantastic conversation with a good friend, Jordan Grant, who, we were talking about all of this.
I'll put the link in the
It's
description box.
yes, thank you. It's a great conversation, and he's really looked into it. He does a great explanation, and
Hmm.
he's a you know he's a qualified medical doctor, and um however, he's looked into the philosophy of science, philosophy first, so he had a pretty good grounding, and he's got an excellent mind. He's a really sharp mind, and it is coming out with or being comfortable with actually expressing ourselves and saying, well, we don't know,
Hmm.
and what
Yes.
we've been told is the case is not the case. That there are so many aspects of what's going on in the body are not proven.
Hmm.
So many different, going back to these different labels of these parts in our body and what they're doing and how they work. That's not known at all.
Yes.
It's certainly not to the degree of certainty that we're given the impression through these scientific study papers. Oh, this
Hmm.
does this and that does it. And to, I mean, I'm not going to go into detail, but it's a certain, even like genetics and that kind of thing. And what's a gene? Oh, it's a nucleotide. It's so really, it's to actually be able to ask, well, what do you mean by that?
Hmm.
And these are not areas, scientific field is not an area that people want to question, because they then can just get lost. And quite often there's the appeal to authority. Well, I've studied it, you haven't, so I know, which
Yes.
is nonsense. I mean, that's
That
just
is nonsense because we can
mm,
study. Studying real exploration has nothing to do with getting a certificate.
oh,
And,
absolutely.
for the past, I found your book coincidentally. It's a fun story. In
Hmm.
July or August of 2023. And um, yeah, it has changed my thinking. And as I said before, and now I forgot where I was going with it. But oh yeah, and since that time, I've been studying. In a way, I've been studying medicine in that with my think in every free minute that I had next, and and I've been studying it much more thoroughly, what I have been studying, than the people that I know. I know many people that went through med school, and they they don't have the tools to even study the text, and they haven't read the texts that I have read. You have read so much more than most people will ever shake a stick at. And and you have indeed, you have applied your life experience, your time, many, many years, and your logic to deeply studying something that people that are called experts have never studied. Who's to say that you're not the expert then? You know?
Well, there is that. Again, I recently read a book. Quite sure what he actually was. A chap called Paul Feyerabend, who was. I mean, he's not with us anymore, and he was quite outspoken in sort of field of this philosophy of science and said that in many cases the so-called non-experts know more than the experts. And again, that's possibly because we haven't been channeled into this very narrow field of this is what you learn
Mm-hmm.
and looked at. I mean, I am a big picture person anyway, so looking at it from the bigger picture and
Mm-hmm.
asking some of the more basic questions. Well, what is it we're actually dealing with here, rather
Yes.
than what bit attaches to what bit and goes on this pathway and affects this, in this detail. Go, okay, leave that aside. First principles. What are we dealing with? What is at the root of this? And to be able to ask those fundamental questions.
Yes, without
And in most
danger.
cases, and in
Yes.
most cases, you're pulling the rug and the whole house of cards. I mean, I know I'm mixing metaphors here, but it collapses because you're taking away the fundamental. I wouldn't say theory. I mean, many cases it's not that they're not even
The
theories,
belief,
hypotheses.
the
The underlying
yeah.
exactly underlying beliefs that everything's built on
Mm-hmm.
is unproven. So the whole thing just falls apart.
Yes,
Start at the basics.
and in a way, like it has to come from the outside because, like for you, you didn't start out wanting to disprove something. You wanted to explore it. And your well-being and your job didn't depend on the outcome. Like if I
True.
am in the medical field and I discover the virus lie, then I'm in trouble because that means I lose my income. But if you are exploring because you're a writer and you want to know, then you can be open and there is no danger for you to find out. The only danger there is, I see that, especially when you have unhealed trauma, uncertainty is more scary. You confuse the safety of adhering to a belief with being safe in your body. And when you do
Mm.
trauma healing, you learn that what safety in your body means and how to create that um, in areas that have, well, how it has nothing to do with believing in something. You find out that it has nothing to do with your belief system, and you can learn to accept that sometimes we are not safe. But that means then we have to replace that with an inner safety of being connected to us and the world, and that's different from being safe from some outside source, or of uh, danger. And so,
I was going to say maybe this is a good time to move into what we're going to talk about, healing.
mhm.
Because you've kind of brought it in, and it seems to sort of move nicely
Yes,
into that
yes,
conversation. I
yes, I
mean,
would
I'm
love
aware of the
to.
time. If you're happy to keep going for a bit longer,
For just a bit, and I
yeah,
maybe
sure.
to summarize, like instead of learning, we can say we're exploring
Yes.
and we are on a journey of experiencing. And instead of saying I have learned, we can say I have discovered something new, or I have let go of something old. I have let
Mm.
go of, I have dismantled a lie, I have let go of belief systems, and I'm exploring new ways of being and thinking and feeling. You
Yeah.
know, those are all the, and those work for me. Do they work for you?
Yes, they do. And again, in the
Nobody has to
different
use them.
contexts. No,
Exactly.
and they will be each one. It has its own place within that, and as you
Hmm.
say, they can all replace this idea of learning or whatever it is, and
Yes,
it does they are all expansive, and they are all um
yes. And my invitation is that people write
yes.
them down and then explore what when they use learn and what that
Mm,
does to them and what happens to them, their feeling and thinking if they replace learning with exploring, journeying, yeah,
discovering. Yeah.
investigating,
Mm,
discovering,
mm,
letting go.
mm,
um, and yeah, and experiencing really, learning
mm,
instead of learning, experiencing, and to just try it out, to try it out for size and see what does it do to you, what does it do in a certain situation. And I'm glad you pointed out or you reminded me of something that we had talked about before. I said healing. I said a
mm,
lot of healing has taken place, and you
mm,
said be careful with that word. And then I went in and thought about what does it mean when I say heal. And
mm.
it means for me, it means like being saved also, and having, there's, in some ways, I do think the body can heal. Like I cut myself and
Yes.
I go out of the way and I notice how the wound disappears, you know?
Yes.
I cut myself really badly twice, and I could just watch my body fix it, heal it. And I liked that. So in that, did I like the wound? No. I now know that it happened because I wasn't with my awareness in my body. I was thinking stressful thoughts while cutting with a big knife, and then I cut myself. And so that was interesting that the wound was not comfortable. And what my body did was miraculous and it healed. So there comes the association of healing is a good thing.
Absolutely. I mean that is a perfect example of a demonstration of how amazing the body actually is, because it
Hmm.
does heal. It does heal itself.
Hmm.
Um, and it's to be aware of when we're using the word heal, to be curious about the context in which we're using that, and
Hmm.
to be aware if we are using it to think there is something wrong with us.
Exactly. That
That was
was,
my main kind of point of saying that, and not to because when we talk about language, it's like I'm having
yes,
bad conversations. It's not for me to say, oh, you're using it wrong. It's to say what context. It was really to raise your
yes.
awareness of the context. And you're absolutely right. That there is a, if you like, physical healing
Hmm.
of something. Like you say, if you cut yourself or graze, or something happens, yes, there
Yes,
is healing.
yes.
And at the
And
same
in the same
time,
time,
and
I was
yes.
using it before we turned on the record, before I switched on the record button. I was using it in a way um, that suggested to myself that I was wrong before and now I was getting better.
Mm,
Instead, like I had to do like, and we've talked about that in the past. And I can still fall into that trap of I have to do A, B, C, and then I'll heal, be better, make money, you know, have comfortable life, be okay. Instead of noticing, actually, right in this moment, I am okay. I've had a cool raw vegan chocolate with dates, and I'm talking to a dear friend, and my dog is comfortable on bed, and the sun is out, and I get to go into the woods. It's good. It's all good right now, even though I haven't done A, B, C, D, E, F, G yet.
that's okay. It's, as you say, I am good now,
Mhm.
and through discovery and exploration and journeying and investigation, I can expand my experience.
Mhm. I can. And then sometimes there are moments that are not okay. And I don't
Mm,
believe that every moment is okay, but there are moments where I'm actually not okay. But I can only help myself if I'm tuned in and can listen to my intuition. And I've come to trust that it will guide me to a situation that is then more comfortable. Or
And also to look at what you mean when you say I am not okay, what that actually means, what you are experiencing in that moment when you're saying I'm not okay. Now that doesn't
yes.
mean when I say you're okay, it doesn't mean everything's all wonderful and everything's happy and
Hmm.
joyful, because for some reason we don't necessarily learn, again, look, we don't expand our experience through that, because we
Hmm.
stay in that place. It's wonderful, it's lovely, I love this is wonderful, and we stay there. And
Hmm.
in order to expand, something sometimes will come along, and it's almost like a dig in the ribs. It's just something shifts, and okay,
Hmm.
here's an and it's a question of I don't feel okay, which is fine to say I don't feel okay. That's I'm not suggesting that's a problem, but to then say, oh, what what is this bringing to mind? How do I feel? What is going on? And what is the opportunity to move on my journey of discovery here?
Hmm.
And it sounds like you kind of over, and I'm not suggesting people overanalyze every moment of every day. It sounds like that, and I don't mean that at all, because the point is to enjoy life. It's when there's an ouch moment, or something
Hmm.
doesn't go the way we think, it is to not dive into the, oh, it's all gone wrong, it's all fallen apart, not
Yeah.
to fall into that, think, oh, to be able to sit and see, there's something here for me.
Yes.
And you not always get that, but again, it's the language of, like you say, I'm not okay, and then see what comes through when you feel that, and where could this be taken? Is it stopping me from doing something that is not right, that is not in my best interest?
Hmm.
Sometimes it could be
Hmm.
just,
Yes.
you know,
It's
this is
extremely complex and probably food for another
totally.
conversation.
Oh,
But
totally.
but like for instance, when I'm lucky, I don't have excruciating headaches often, but every now and then it happened. And I don't find those comfortable. And I yes, it's better than like it's better than dying. Right now I don't want to die because I think it's getting so exciting and joyful right now. And I'm so curious about how I'm going about what I'm going to find next.
Mm.
Um, but I mean, I've had pain where I thought I was close to passing out, and it wasn't pleasant. And so that's what I mean with not okay. And right now
Mm.
I don't have that. So um, there are other signals that my body is sending me where it's saying, please take care of me, or I need rest. And it's an interesting question why I can't listen to certain things. But it's also interesting, you had this interesting conversation with the Biggleson brothers. And, I always felt that I ought to do a parasite cleanse. And this conversation has I mean, I was already on the track in that direction because I listened to Daniel Reuters. But this conversation sort of really, really um, finished off I mean, not, no, stop, I mean, completely finished changing my mind about this to see no parasite cleanse. That's not fine for me. And interestingly enough, something in me had resisted it. And I had berated myself for resisting it. And now I see that what had resisted was something wise in me that says it's not good for me. And so I can now, for years I thought I was too lazy or too undisciplined to do this, while I was telling my students not to use the words lazy and discipline, because I said there is nothing like laziness. You have resistance and it's to be taken seriously and you have to explore. what you're resisting and why, and how you can be kind and helpful to yourself. And I was not applying that, I was not applying that good piece of advice to myself. And
That's what we
now,
do sometimes when we, it's when we're sharing information, it's to realize that you kind of, yes, we're telling ourselves the same something as well. Yeah.
yes, we're
Yeah.
sharing what we need to
Mm,
hear. And because
mm.
we are human, someone else might benefit from it. But we write for ourselves and we share for ourselves. That's what I've come to
Totally.
believe. That's my current
Totally.
belief. I might change that too, but yeah,
I'd say that's,
yeah.
a useful one. Yeah, for the moment.
Yeah. Yeah, so I noticed that healing was sometimes this, if I don't do ABC, then I cannot heal. And then it's
Mm,
my own damn fault. Or I've healed there, so at a girl, and I don't want to do it like that. So I was grateful for you, or am grateful for you for pointing that out. And so it's an interesting thing, again, not to drop the word heal, but to
no.
notice, to pause and say, when I'm saying that, what do I mean? And am I using it in a joyful way, in a
Mm,
helpful way, in an enriching way?
yes,
Hmm.
I
Yeah,
agree.
there's a lot to talk about. I mean, gosh, I mean, and we'll never finish. Those are fun words and topics to keep pondering, you know.
Mm.
We're
Oh yes,
okay, even though we haven't finished.
oh yes, I mean, I'm not suggesting I'm kind of, oh, these are the answers. This is where I am with my
No.
own exploration on my own journey at the moment.
Mm-mm.
Um, and yeah, I'm keeping going, keeping traveling, keeping the exploration going, keeping the journey going. And
Yes.
it's exciting. It's not always a fun ride. Sometimes things happen and you think, oh, okay, here's something new. And it's a question of how, again, the approach. And my approach is I'm getting better at the approach of, oh, here's an opportunity for me. What am I what am I going to discover? What is the exploration? What is the journey? Am I going to let go of something old? So yeah, everything we've just said, what is there for me to discover about myself and my journey from this experience? So yes,
Yeah.
it's
So it's actually, if maybe not about getting better, but about joyful living instead, you know?
yes,
Yeah.
removing the resistance to enjoying
Yeah.
enjoying the journey and enjoying the now moment. I mean, it's really
Hmm.
important, as you've mentioned, to
Yes.
recognize it's now now is where, we get so lost in the, oh, gotta. And I go,
Mm.
do I? What feels right for now? What feels right to be doing now? And that's not to say, oh, you don't, we
Hmm.
set up this arrangement, we had a date and a time, and we meet that, so it's not the kind of, oh, let everything go. I don't mean that.
Yeah.
At the
And at the
same
same
time,
time, if you had said, oh, something came up or I don't feel like it, I would still love you.
oh yes, well, yes, thank you. And it's yeah, well, I mean, there was something a couple of weeks ago that I was going to go to, and it would have been a fun day out, and a couple of days before, something said no.
Hmm.
I just felt I had this incredible feeling of overwhelm, and I just said, sorry, I can't make it. And as
Hmm.
soon as I made that decision, I had a sense of calmness, and I thought, so you could say, oh no, I am all right, I could go. And whereas I recognized that it was no, I'd made the right decision, and so everything felt calm, and it was exactly the right decision. And you know, so yeah, I knew it was, and it would have been a fun day, and it was not an easy decision. It was going with how I felt. As I say, it was that sense of overwhelm that just um said no. I I just have to leave that.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
as I say, it was amazing that as soon as I made that decision and sent the message and said I can't make it, that I felt calm. So,
Yeah, I
you
know
know,
that. Then this relief. And then you know,
yeah,
yes,
yeah.
thank God I
Trust,
listened to myself.
yeah,
Yes.
trust your body, and
Hmm.
learn to listen to our own bodies. And this is all part of this new paradigm of, not trusting the system, but to learn to trust ourselves. And that's
Hmm.
not always easy because you've got to,
No.
learn to listen to ourselves. Yes,
Hmm. Yeah.
that's definitely a change from the old system. So,
Yes, and I've also come to understand that the paradox is my favorite stylistic device. Like sometimes we just have paradox, like we say we have to be careful with the word learn and getting better, and we still use those terms, and um, that seems like a paradox, but it's okay, it's uh,
oh yes, it's not to beat
mm,
ourselves up. It's just, oh, I shouldn't use it. It's not about shouldn't. It's
no, mm-mm,
just to be aware of the words, and we know the kind of thing. Oh, spells, casting spells. So yes, and but
yeah.
not to be, oh, I mustn't cast spells. Spelling, and just not to be so.
Not to be uptight about it and not to be stressed.
Exactly, that's the word. Yes, not to get ourselves uptight and stressed about it all.
And
To to
exactly.
to
Yeah.
be more open, to be more curious, to have
Hmm.
that approach and go, oh, that's interesting. When I hear
Yeah.
something I've not heard before, and oh,
Hmm.
that's interesting. It's not, oh my God, I've got to believe it, or oh, I don't believe it. Just okay. And if
Hmm.
if it interests me enough, I'll look into it and just that's not something I want to dive into, and I'll leave it alone. So yeah,
Mm.
I mean, yeah, as you say, we can carry on, but
Yes. Yeah, we can. But we'll call it a day then. And I thank you for our meeting and
well, thank you for
exchange.
inviting me. As always, great conversations. Yeah, they always take us in all sorts of different directions. So I hope they haven't taken us in off in too many distractions for people. So
Oh,
yeah,
that's
interesting.
okay because one can always pause or stop the video and yeah, and the most important idea I think is this um this stopping to be curious and kind, really, with ourselves and to see. Oh, one thing I would like to say before we really end, I sometimes, there's an inner critic or something in me saying, why do you always want to go for the joyful experience? There are so many people that don't have it good. You're such, you're all, and I've decided um, to to strive for joy anyway. I that I yeah, I find that feeling guilty about feeling joy is not helpful to anyone. But when I feel joy, this kind of quiet, genuine joy and connection and love, I know that I'm nicer to be around. So that's my comfort.
And that is, as I say, the only person we can work on is ourselves. The only
Hmm.
way we can change the world is to change ourselves. And I'm not sure about the world change, but the only way to have a world we want to live in is to be that for
Hmm.
ourselves.
Hmm.
And as you live in joy, you are sending that out, not just to the people who are in your immediate physical vicinity. That if anyone wants to listen to the podcast episode I had with Ali McCusick, we are sending that out into the field everywhere.
Hmm.
It isn't just the locality, it's everywhere. And so the more people who live in that joy, in that from a place of love and joy and compassion, that goes out everywhere. So in fact,
Hmm.
denying yourself the joy, you are denying everyone the joy.
Yeah, and I can tell with my dog when I'm in a joyful, peaceful state, he feels better. Like we are out in the
Absolutely.
woods and I feel joyful and relaxed. I can tell that he's happier, and I can
Yes,
tell things are easier. And so there's this immediate feedback that when
exactly.
I'm stressed, he is unhappy. He feels stressed, and so and I can tell that with with kids and with my environment. So that's my comfort. So or my answer to the voice that says, don't go for the joy. So so I will
Lovely.
continue to go for the joy, and it was joyful talking to you.
Thank you very much. I enjoyed it too.
Thank you. Take good care.
You too.
Bye.